Hey up everyone, welcome to episode 23 of Yorkshire Gamers a Reet Big Wargames podcast, and one of our catch-up episodes. And a while back I said when an episode ended in a 3 I'd do a catch-up episode, so here we are with the second one of those, and it's the second one of the award-winning podcast. Whee! I did put a little short thank you podcast out a couple of weeks ago, just to say thank you very much to everyone. If you don't know already, we won the best podcast section in the Little Wars TV Caesar Awards, which was a fantastic thing. I have to say, after being only on air for a year, great achievement, and I'm very proud of the fact that we've got there. Unfortunately, there's a bit of sad news to give you before we start the podcast, and that's the sudden death of a chap called Ian Smith. Many of you will remember Ian from his absolutely fantastic and absolutely huge games that he used to put on at shows, and specifically at Partisan, where he was a regular winner of the best game at that show. A sad loss for the hobby. Unfortunately, I only met Ian once, and that was at last year's Partisan, although I was aware of him and his games. And Robbie Roddis introduced me to Ian, and we had a really nice chat for 20 minutes, half an hour at Partisan, during which he said that he would be more than happy to come on this podcast as a guest and chat about his big games and his philosophy on gaming, which was proper Yorkshire style. He was well known at the Sheffield Wargame Society, regular member there for many years, and well known throughout the Wargamers community. So, real sad day with Ian passing, and I understand that his friends are going to put on a 40mm Napoleonic game at Partisan in his honour, and I look forward to seeing that and having a chat with the guys there. So a bit of sad news, unfortunately, at the start of the episode. So, as I said at the start, this is going to be a bit different to the normal episodes if it's the first time you're listening. Normally we spend a couple of hours with each of our guests, but this time in the catch-up episode, what I do is I dip back into some of our old previous episodes and speak to some of our previous guests who may have talked to us about a project or an event or something during the course of that interview. And as it says in the title, I have a catch-up with them and find out where they are and how that project went, and get a little bit of a news and an update from them. Something I found with old podcasts is that you kind of get in to the guest and you're interested in what they're talking about, and then you don't hear from them again. So I thought it'd be a nice idea to get people back and speak to them for half an hour, 40 minutes or so, and just catch up with them. So today we've got 3 guests. I'm going to be speaking to Dr. Chris Brown from episode 3 and Mark Freeth from episode 5 from the Wargames Holiday Centre. But first up, it is our friend of the show, Simon Hall, author of the Wargames Rules Meg, and another couple of rules that we're going to talk about, and a pretty amazing project that he's involved with at the moment, involving a computer game that you will be all familiar with. Hello everyone, and my next guest is someone you'll all be familiar with from episode 8. Back in June last year, we spoke to Simon Hall, and Simon's been a very, very busy boy since we last spoke to him. So,
I'm pretty
hi
tired,
Simon,
Ken.
how are you doing?
I'm all right. Probably fair to say a bit tired than I'd like to be, but that's probably a reflection of having been so busy. So yeah,
Exactly. Well, there's plenty to talk about, mate. And just to start with, you're back in the UK. You're living in Blighty again.
We've had an amazing family adventure in South Africa. Absolutely loved it. So sad to leave in some ways, but daughters reaching secondary education level and parents getting a bit old and fragile. So I thought, right time to come back. So we've come back. We didn't want to be around London anymore. It's so busy. So we're setting up home nicely in the Midlands near Worcester. Just formed a wargaming club up the road called the Witchbowl Warriors.
I was going to say, have you got yourself a club yet? That's what
We've got one started. We've got them started.
Cool.
It's had two meetings. Third meeting was this week, but I couldn't make that one. So we're gathering players nicely. So that's good. That's just up the road from us, and we're building a house in Droitwich Spa and settling down in this sort of area. And it's nice because it's the centre of the country, so I can get to all the events and shops and family and stuff with relative ease. It's a relatively easy drive from here to various places. And so only about 50-minute battlefield hobbies, so it's quite nice.
So what was the name of the club again?
The Witchbowl Warriors.
And whereabouts are you meeting then? We'll give you a free plug. Whereabouts are you meeting?
Free plug. We're meeting at Witchbowl Social Club every alternate Tuesday night. Yeah. And if you want to drop me a line, anybody, I can tell you exactly where that is. But basically, it's the first junction down the M5 from Birmingham. So if you're anywhere south Birmingham, Kidderminster, Stourbridge, as far south as Cheltenham, you could get there with real ease. So we've had 3 games and 6 players at meeting number 2. So hopefully it'll grow nicely from there. So and it's the Witchbowl Social Club. So the nice thing is it's got a TV with a sport on it. It's got a bar for a drink, and if you finish early, it's even got a couple of snooker tables. So it's not too bad.
Oh, fantastic! Well, I might even come down to Leeds with that sort of stuff on offer.
There you go. There you go. Well, you're in Flynn, you can drop in on the way back.
Yeah, exactly. So when we chatted last time, we spoke in the main about your rule set, Meg, and we were in the middle of lockdown then, and obviously things were kind of hoping to happen in the future. I think you've been fairly busy with competitions and championships and stuff all over the world, if I remember correctly. So just give us a rundown on where you are with that.
Yeah, no, it had already taken off very nicely. It's since COVID has backed off a bit and people have been able to play, it's spreading really fast. We're picking up loads of new players into ancient wargaming from other periods and from 40k as well. People who like the idea of the concept. So it's growing really nicely. The competitions are pretty steady. There's a lot of them. I think there's a competition every fortnight in the UK pretty much through the year.
Wow, that's good.
So it's really blown like that. We have ones in Belgium, France, there was Australia, Poland, Greece, the US. So there's plenty going, and it's just continuing to spread nicely by word of mouth. Now people are playing, so there's a steady stream of new players coming on board, and the community just keeps growing. So it's got its own momentum now, and we have the official delayed launch because it had to be cancelled twice at Historicon for the USA. With PSC in attendance in some strength. So I'm over there in July for the whole of Historicon this year, and hoping to gather a lot of new players over there to come and play the small version of the game and get involved. And we've got a major competition over the weekend there and a bunch of promotion events. So that's good. And we've got the first Asian Open in Thailand on the 23rd and 24th of October in Bangkok. So I'm going to be at Battlefield Bangkok playing in that in October. So yeah, it's really lovely. We've got an amazing international community growing. It's really, really good.
That's great. That sounds like a load of excuses for holidays there. Is that a plan?
Don't mention that. Don't mention it. No, exactly. Well, to be fair, I'm taking the family with me to Historicon, and we're going to have 3 weeks in somewhere in the States or the Caribbean, so they're pretty happy about that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm sure if you mention the Caribbean, a few days of the War Games show's not going to go amiss, is it?
Yeah, really? It seems to have worked a treat. I'll just have to hope the family don't listen to the podcast very much.
Yeah, we'll mute this bit for anywhere.
Mute that bit out, yeah.
Excellent. No worries. And we were kind of at the edge. You were kind of at the edge of producing your next set last time that we spoke, and that was Divisions of Steel. And is that out now? Whereabouts are we with that?
It's out with a soft launch, I would say. It's out because we had a whole bunch of testers and players who wanted it in finished form. Yeah. So rather than delay and wait for supply chains to allow it to be produced fully, which is very difficult at the moment, it's a bit of a nightmare. We've launched it in PDF form with a load of support, so you can buy it now at the website. All the websites, they're always the same. They're the www. and then the name of the rules with hyphens, so it's divisions-of-steel.co.uk. So yeah, the finished rule set is up there. It's great because it's in PDF form, and I'm following a similar idea to Meg really, which is I'm a product optimizer by nature. I've done a lot of work in that area. So I think putting it out there, getting people playing and listening a lot gathering a lot of the feedback and adapting is a really good process. So we're getting some great feedback, and because it's all PDF form, we can do a couple of adaptations through the year, tighten it all, and then get it formally published the year after in book form. So it's all there. There's a whole bunch of army lists already there. People are already playing it a fair bit and giving us some nice feedback. In general, they really, really like it, and it's a lot of fun, but there's a bit of tightening we want to do. And we've got the army builder and the point systems to work on yet, and that should come out in the next couple of months. But it's up and running and very nice. Good fun. And there's a 10 mil range coming out from PSC, which I think they're going to pre-launch in May and officially launch at Historicon, and they're beautiful, really lovely 10 mil ultracast tanks and figures.
Excellent. Is that along a similar lines to the Meg Ancients range? Because they're
exactly similar lines. There'll be so there are some company battle boxes basically for infantry and support weapons, for tanks, and for troop carrying, a set of trucks or a set of half tracks to go with them, and gradually they'll work the way through a World War II range. So it's all pretty exciting. They're lovely. It's a lovely scale, and they're lovely stuff. So
a World War II range,
which I know you love. They're great for big
battles. No, we're all about the big battles here.
So if we well, you're lacking the book. I mean, the game, the Division Steel game, it's quite interesting because I wanted to play big games because I'm a similar lover of big games, and it's set up so that you can actually play in an afternoon and a morning. A day you can play a battalion-sized battle. On that. So 4 full companies plus the BHQ plus a load of attachments. And if you get the copy, I'll send you a link. You can download it. The main demo game that we're fighting with is a battle of that from Roré in around Caen in 1944. It's a full battalion of the Tyneside Scottish, hit by various bits of the 2nd SRAC and the 9th SS, I think. So three camp groups effectively thumped it in the morning, and they had a real struggle to force it away, and had 2 companies of tanks join, and we managed to play that out to a conclusion from 10 till 5 on the day.
Good effort.
8 foot by 8 table, and it's got about 30 Panthers on the table and about 15 Panzer IVs and 15 Stugs and 3 companies of Panzer Grenadiers and an entire battalion of infantry and 12 anti-tank guns and 24 supporting tanks. So it looks great. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah, that's now we're talking. We're talking.
That's your kind of thing. I should bring it up to Leeds because I've got when I've got everything set up, I'll bring it up because it's an 8 by 8 table that we play it on, and I've had the actual terrain designed and printed on some proper battle maps.
Oh, fantastic.
We've got the exact topological terrain printed out. It looks superb. It's really cool.
Absolutely fantastic. And you can never have too many Panthers on a table, I think.
No, unless you're the British guy behind an anti-tank gun, when you go, that's a lot of Panthers.
You don't quite see the beautiful lines of the tank when you're actually having to fire something at it and trying to stop it.
I think it's an amazing story, that battle, because there were 6 anti-tank guns dug in. They had all APDS. They had the full quota of APDS, so they were pretty effective. And I think they reckon they took out 15 AFEs between them. I think lost 3 of the anti-tank guns. But there was one particular one which was brilliant, which was you saw Sergeant Stewart from memory, who was gun number 3 or 4, and they set themselves up right next to a knocked out Sherman that still looked functional. And they dug in nearby that. So every time they fired, the Germans in response looked at the Sherman and fired at the Sherman and hit it. So it took ages before the dummy tank blew up, and they finally managed to figure out it was an anti-tank gun 20 meters away that was shooting at them. And they effectively got run over for that. But in the meantime, he caused all sorts of mayhem. So it's quite cunning, really. So,
that's clever thinking. I like that.
Yeah, it was pretty smart.
That's a good plan. That's a good plan.
Yeah. That was pretty clever. Yeah.
And do the rules scale? Can you play in any scale with it? Can you do 6 mil? 20 mil?
Any scale. It depends how big a table you've got. It plays beautifully. It plays beautifully at 10 and 15, and you can squeeze it up to 20, and it goes down to 6 really nicely. And actually, we built the same battle in 10 mil, 15 mil, and 3 mil.
Oh, actually. 3 mil, right? Yeah.
Yeah, because 3 mil is interesting because it shows people what it would really look like.
Yeah.
Because on the tabletop to scale, even a 50 mil tank's enormous. It's like 150 meters long by 70 meters long. So it's a ship. So we put these 3 mil ones next to it. You've got to remember the rules are designed to replicate that. It actually really looks like this. These 3 little dots, these 3 little things, and people go, "What's that? Oh, it's a panther." So it's really good to actually show that to help people understand the abstractions, because the rules are quite clever. They work off in a very simple way, actually. Instead of treating the target as the model, we treat everything as being where the front of the center of the base is, because it's a much better approximation of where the real thing is.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that means you could actually set up a 28mm Tiger against a 3mm Sherman, and the rules will deal with it as if they're the same, because it'll treat the middle of the front of the giant Tiger as where the real tank is. Doesn't make any difference. So it's totally scale neutral, and it gets rid of all those issues of, can I see that tank over there? No, there's another one in the way. And I'm thinking, no, there isn't. That's just your model. That's a giant fictional model. There ain't no tank there. 99% of it's like a golf shot going through trees. It's mainly leaves, So if you hit the thing, it's kind of, So it's it's an interesting little concept, but it makes a big difference in itself. And then we use the Meg dice in clever ways and all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty cool. Check it out. It's good fun. And
so if you've got a knowledge of Meg and the card system, and will that help you along? Yeah.
It will, because some of the same principles exist. You play coloured discs to give you certain different actions. You pay more for different training. So some of the same principles are inbuilt into it. So you've got a head start already, because you look at it and go, at least that bit's familiar. But then there are some very interesting twists every time to the system, because when you do the ancient battle, I always say what I aim at is historical feel, first of all, more than anything else. So I say, well, what can give me the historical feel? And in an ancient battle, you want big battle lines. Gradually becoming smaller battle lines, crumbling into smaller, crumbling into chaos. So the rules of Meg use the system to allow you to move big blocks efficiently if you use your cards cleverly. World War II is very different. You activate individual units, and the clever bit is you use the disc to either keep the initiative so you can do something else, or to reactivate something that's already activated and is good. So you can get more activity out of high quality troops. And if you read a lot about World War II history, the reality is high quality troops just actually did more.
A lot more effective.
They were a lot more effective because they put more firepower into useful areas, or they were just more efficient with rates of fire, or they were more capable of spotting targets. But the net result was they did more effective activity per hour for quality troops. And the rules actually reflect that literally, because you will be able to activate a bunch of BT2, as we call them, high quality Africa Corps, more often than you would to activate the CT3 Brits in the early war.
It's an interesting idea, keeping it as PDF until you're happy with it, and I think that's a great idea, because you go out and you pay £30 or £40 or whatever on a hardback copy of a book, and then 3 days later somebody goes, well, actually, and you end up with huge sort of erratas and FAQs and all that. So have you got a time scale on going to print with that, or are you just happy to let it settle down?
We'll let it settle down, but the PSC plan is to publish it early next year in book form. So it'll probably have a compendium edition out in the early part of next year.
And Meg has the army lists online. Is that going to be a similar thing with?
It's the same thing with this. They're all done by Micromark, Mark Bevis, who does Micromark. So they're very well researched. So they're all online, and these are all sold individually, because Mark makes his living out of lists. So I can't do them all for free. It doesn't make sense. There's so many of them, it would be ridiculous. But you can pick up bundles or pick up what you want, and again, they're all online. It means we can again update them for latest data and correct any errata. So probably, I think through the year, what we'll have is 2 or 3 editions. If you buy the rules now, you'll end up with 2 or 3 improvements through the year. And then what we plan to do is give everybody who's bought the PDF rules a discount voucher if they want to then switch over and buy the hardback book in the early part of next year. So
excellent. So that's excellent news on that one. And we mentioned while we were chatting before we came on air about another set of rules in the Meg stable.
There's a
Renaissance.
third, came out at the same time pretty much. The Renaissance ones, So Reg, as it's nicely nicknamed. Good old Reg. Good old Reg is fantastic. Is Reg,
Sounds like he drives a bus down the local.
It does exactly. You were thinking Reg Varney the same as me. Look at that. We come from the same. Loads of people listen to that going, what the hell are they talking? But exactly. And that's been done really nicely. I've had a sort of executive producer role in that, of overseeing it, making sure it's consistent. But it's actually Alistair Harley and Simon Clark have done a fabulous job on it, with a bit of input from me at times. It's playing really well. So if you like doing your English Civil War stuff or your 30 Years War stuff, they're excellent. Again, you can pick them up online. They will also be refined through the year, but I think they're actually really very close. and they'll be published again in book form probably around the early part of next year under the similar sort of policy. And same thing, they have list books online, and there are a couple of quid a PDF with 20 armies in and such things. So it's easy to pick up. So there's been loads of great, and there's been a whole bunch of the first competition and events of those going on over the last 6 months. So yeah, very happy seeing lots of parking shot armies out playing triple C type.
What time period have you set that as?
It starts basically when firearms start to become dominant, which is a little bit different in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
So over in Western Europe, it's probably like 1540-ish. But if you go out to Japan, it's probably more like 1580-ish. And then it runs through. Actually, it's going to overlap with the horse and musket set. It runs through to the War of the Spanish Succession. Yeah. So it can go all the way through to the sort of 1670s and 80s before we get into the next period of history, really. Yeah.
And mechanism-wise, are we looking similar to Meg on that one?
It'll be familiar again, but with some neat tricks in it. They're a little bit different again. Probably more echelons and rear support systems going on to give the right sort of feel, and troops being driven back by fire when the fire gets too intense, which is more what tended to happen when they came close to each other and blattered each other too much with the musket fire. Yeah. But otherwise, some very strong similarities to Meg without it being such a big shift as the World War II in terms of how the system's used. Yeah. Very easy to pick up. Yeah. People are switching between Meg and Reg competitions all the time because they're different, but they're similar enough that it's very easy to play.
And how does it feel as the sort of the rule writer of the main set to have another couple of people working on it?
Oh, that's great.
On the side, you're not so protective of your child, or
no. You probably saw through the back. I'm a huge believer in sort of crowd efforts and trying to build community.
Yeah.
So if I can lay some shape and other people want to build it and can do it nicely, then I'm all for it, really. So I'll no doubt team up with others for other periods. We've when Simon Clark's finished this one of my topics to talk to him a bit more about, which we sort of said we might do in principle, is the fantasy supplement for Meg, which we've done a bit of work on. So to bring out a supplement that will allow you to switch straight into fantasy battles using the Meg system by adding all the relevant troop types and a short mini book of additional rules to cover magic and creatures and such things, and then a set of army lists to cover all the well-known fantasy worlds. And you're up and running, and we'll see some Meg dragons on the table.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. That's all we like to see.
More to Meg Dracones, and surprisingly, there we go. I've even done the cover already, but there you go. That'd be fun.
It sounds like you can have it all covered eventually.
Well, that's the idea. The idea is the system is really good. You can adapt it to all the periods. So, so basically, after the World War II, I'm going to be diverting into Rome Total War finishing, which we need to talk about, and I'm sure we'll cover a bit. Yeah. But after that's done, I've got Gloire de Guerre, which is the Napoleonic horse and musket set to work on, and then probably the last big one will be an American Civil War set, and then we'll have everything from ancient Renaissance, horse and musket, all the way through to ACW, which basically takes to the edge of World War One, really, in terms of style, and then World War II and fantasy battles. So then you've got the suite of five plus the fiction.
The whole lot. That's going to be
the whole gamut, exactly. Yeah, and making it. Part of what I like is that I like all the periods. So one of my struggles is when the rule sets are all very different. I don't know about you, but I find it very difficult to think, okay, I think I'll play an ancient battle of that, and I'll play Napoleonics with a totally different set of rules, and I'll do English Civil War. I used to do that all the time. My head started to spin. Whereas with this, what's nice is, because there's a central core that's common, it's actually a lot easier to flip between them and change the periods. But the games feel totally different. It's got they've got very much their own historical feel. So that was always the ambition, was to try and make a suite that people could move around with much more ease than if all the rules are totally different in style.
Well, excellent. I look forward to trying some of those. That's going to be a good fun in the future. But you mentioned something else that we were going to talk to there, and I'm sure many of the people listening to this podcast will have played Rome Total War, the computer game, and we've talked about this with other guests on my podcast, and it was kind of that first really good crossover from figure wargaming to computer wargaming, and you kind of felt that you were playing a tabletop wargame with it, with the way that it worked. And The engine was used for Time Commanders on BBC2 as a television series. So how the hell have you got involved with it, and what are you doing with it?
The hell have I got to do? We were approached by Sega, who own the rights to the computer game, were interested in, can we do a board game version of this?
Yeah.
And some people who want to do that. So in amongst a bunch of people, we put our hands up and said, oh yeah, you could definitely do a board game version of this. That'd be very interesting to do. And shared with them the core of the Meg system and said, look, this is quite snazzy, these coloured dice. We could use these. So we managed to negotiate a deal to do it. And I got the rights to start working on that in the middle of last year to design it. And got the first design together and took it down to PSC to review it. And we all played it and thought, actually, as a first guess, if you like, of how the game should play, it played really well. So we thought, this is a blast, actually. It's very, very good. So from there, we got quite carried away. Thought, okay, we'll talk to them about doing a bit more, and then we'll develop it. And we got the agreement that we do not just Rome Total War, a Rome game, but we'd be allowed to do Alexandria as well, and Britannia and other things in the series. So then we worked all of those up. And basically, the game is really, really good fun and creates a transition into tabletop wargaming from the board game. So what I've got is a game that, because I was a Rome Total War nut, because I travelled a lot, so it was my regular travel companion. So I spent my time conquering the world as Namibia and Numidians and all sorts of things I liked, avoiding the big Roman armies. So I played it to death, the first one. So I thought, well, if you take all the main features that are in it, if I can come up with a system where relatively simply every main feature of it, developing towns, building armies, trading, allies, if I can just find a simple way to do every one of the 8 or 9 things that are in there, you could probably get a very slick, fast-moving game. And that's what we've managed to achieve. It's crafted to be playable in its initial form as 4 major factions. And it's superb as a 4-player game. You can up that to about 6 without the time stretching very much with some additional factions. With all the additional factions, you could play it as 14 if you wanted, but you'd have to be very dedicated and want a weekend.
I'm sure those people are out there.
Somebody will be doing it. There are people out there already going, hang on, when are we free for a weekend? So it works. And it uses the essence of the Meg system, because you build your armies as cards. So the cards represent a bunch of units. And the essence of Meg is in it, because you play head to head. It has a coloured set of dice to roll with certain special effects if the opposing troop type was particularly vulnerable or not. And it's got different dice to roll if you're in terrain or you're not. So all of the ideas of it are built in. So as you play a battle as a card game, in about 2 or 3 minutes, you can quickly do a sort of fast result version. And you will get a benefit if you've got better troops, if you've got better generals, if you prefer terrain, you've got terrain. All those things will come in. But it's very fast. So that can be done as a what we call strat play version of the game. And then if you have a big battle where you have like an 8 or 10 card army against each other, there's a spin-off product which is called battle play, where I lay out a battle play of the 7 files. And now you actually do what you would do in a war game. You deploy your army as cards face down, and the opposing army draws theirs face down. You've got a system for laying out some terrain, and you turn them over, and you fight a mini war game using cards. So then, of course, the next step, and people said, oh, we'd love to have some figures or something. So, well, the neat trick then is, all I have to do is say to you, that phalanx card there is 3 tugs impactor, and that cavalry one over there, 2 tugs of the companions. And you've got an instant pactor. So you say, well, go get the figures, play the battle as pactor battles instead. Or if you're really cool, why don't we play it as a big game and say, let's play Mega Maximus instead and do it for real? Those two, that pike card there is 5/8 of pike. That's 5/8 with whacking great, 200 pike bases and all that. So you can make it whatever you like, and then just go back to the board with the results of the battle and carry on with the critique. So it's a hoot.
So it's got all the elements of the computer game. Then you kind of
all the main elements that are in there.
You've got the growth. You've got the development of your armies. Obviously the battles and the campaigns. The whole lots.
It's easy to explain the sequence really, because it brings it in. So if in the phase it works in the turn phase is you start with an agent turn. So you will have 2 or 3 multi-purpose agents. They're representing where agents are busy, and they can roam around the board. And depending on some cards they've drawn, they could either try and negotiate an alliance with somebody. They could do a trade deal with something to get you some money, or if you get an extreme card, they might try and assassinate somebody. So all those little nuggets are in there first straight away. Then you raise your money. So the more areas you control, the more money you get. Excellent. So you get yourself a pot of gold. Then you move your armies and your navies around and fight people and see what happens. And then you come back and spend your money. And you spend your money in the ways that you would in Rome Total War. You could invest it in development and try and get yourself some development of a better troop type or something that will allow you some sort of social or technological development. So every nation's got a tree of developments. Or you could spend it paying to build the cities. So I've got 5 things in total I think we're going to end up with. You can build markets, defensive walls, barracks, ports and road systems. So those are in, and we're going to have models for those. So as you build your territory, it'll be a little bit like Mega Monopoly, where you put down your little road symbol on there, and then you buy a barracks and put it in the middle, and you get a wall, and you put it around it, and it goes, and there's still room for a market, and slot a market in, and then you put a port on the end, it's a fully developed region. So, and you'll see it build on the map. So you'll see the organic build on the map. Or you spend your money on troops. Or a couple of other things that you could do as well. So you're doing exactly the same as you did in the game of choosing how to spend money to either build armies. And just as you could in Rome Total War, the board game, you could pursue a relatively peaceful strategy and go, well, let me try and trade with everybody and conquer neutral regions and do all of that. Or you can be super aggressive and go straight for Rome. So it gives you all sorts of different alternatives. And the 4 factions are quite diverse. And then when you get the lesser factions, you can play as I used to as the Numidians or the Scythians. So it's kind of cool. And if you really want to get carried away, the Alexander map, which gives you the Macedonians and the Egyptians and the Armenians and the Indians and the Persians, because it allows a game that's broader than just Alexander as well. You can stick it next to the original, the main game.
Oh, now we're talking. Now we're talking.
Put the whole thing together and try and conquer India as the Numidians.
Excellent.
So it becomes quite a whopper at that point, and I think that gets you up to like 16 factions. So that'd be one of those where some group of wargamers somewhere will have a spare room, we'll set this board up, everybody will play, they'll meet every Thursday night, do some moving around, fight battles at the weekend. It'll take them 3 years to finish, but at the end of it, it'll be like legends of the Rome Total War.
Yeah, I can hear tables being cleared across the country as we speak.
It'd be a hoot. It would be a hoot. I mean, I'm already destined to play, I think, as a Pacto campaign with Meg instead of fighting the battles with the cards. That's bound to be the first thing that happens for me with people. We're going to want to do that and just set it up and just fight the battle that way. And it's and in terms of commerciality, they've done well. PSC launched it on GameFound. We needed to raise not a huge amount to do it, probably £150,000 to do it really, really well. I would guess we raised the necessary amount in, I think it was 3 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we ended up in something like £540,000 that we've raised.
Wow.
And there's a late pledge going up because a lot of people want to pledge and join in now. They've seen more about it.
Yeah.
So we've raised enough money to do it really, really well and actually do a fantastic version of it. So it's going to look superb. It's going to be fantastic mix of models and great artwork and fantastic game in the box, and I think we'll just have a lot of fun doing it. So I'm going to be very busy refining the design, probably May and June in particular, probably May, June, July, really big months doing a lot of refinement, but it's largely there. And the main thing I'm going to be working on is a solo play version. I've got the basics of a very neat solo play version, virtual me that you can play against. For those people who would want to, decide they want to try and build the Roman Empire. So I built a set of scenarios that are historical. So your simplest one, which might only take you an hour, would be Caesar's conquest of Gaul. And the biggest one is, can you build the entire Roman Empire from the beginnings of Rome? Take you a few weeks.
And I think many people will have played Rome Total War in that format, won't they? As a solo
they will.
player.
I think that the computer game leans to it. So more players are solo players. So I want to accommodate solo players being able to play the game. And have a lot of fun doing it. So we can generate something really neat that allows you to play, and then the rest of them are fictitious ones. Let's imagine it wasn't Rome that won it. Try and build the conquest of Europe as the barbarian tribes, and let's see if we can wreck the entire development of Europe and have some mad German in charge of all of Europe's dark ages and make it really dark.
So it sounds with those figures then that there's kind of been a lot of crossover already. Outside of the traditional wargamer.
Yeah, I mean, I I always thought if we could do it as our tabletop hobby needs fresh blood.
Yeah.
You know? And we all agree it needs fresh blood. So when I did Meg, one of my biggest things was to try and make it a bit more catchy than most war games, so we could get fresh blood from the sci-fi war gamers, from the fantasy war gamers, and the up and coming kids who've just played Warhammer for a few years, and I think, well, that was kind of interesting, and not be sitting there thinking that looks dull. You know, so that's one of the beauties that we've done with the system, is it attracts people in. So I always thought if you could do the same with board games and computer games, we don't need to feed many people who buy a board game or a computer game into our tabletop hobby to create massive growth for our tabletop hobby. Yeah. So the big picture is to try and do that. So we get people who will buy the board game, and 9 out of 10, I suspect, will play it using the strap play system, so it's quick, and play the game in 3 hours and even put it away. And that's what they'll do. Yeah. But if 1 in 10 picks up Battle Player, plays it, and 1 in 2 of those goes, that's really interesting, I fancy it with figures, let's have a go at this Meg thing, we have just gained an enormous number of players for the tabletop hobby. So that's really the big play, because the computer game version, I can't remember how many followers it's got on its Facebook page. I can't remember, but it's hundreds of thousands. It's
hundreds, yeah, and it's a generational thing as well. I play it, my son plays it. It's if you've got an interest in history, it's such a fantastic game that's spread through generations. So it's great to see potential of a figure game from it.
It would be, yeah, and even on the game founding thing, when I was answering questions, there was loads of people started asking, well, what do we do beyond? Can we do anything beyond this? And I said, well, it's not really a topic we're supposed to be doing much with, because there's a few issues to deal with that in terms of the Sega arrangement stuff. But if you wanted to, you just play it as Meg. And then loads of people looking at Meg, and before I know it, we've got 3 new Meg players who've never played Wargaming in their lives. They've just pledged to join Rome Total War, and they've now bought Meg and bought 3 packs of boxes. They're busy painting armies already.
Oh, fantastic.
There's proof of the pudding. It's not many of them, but we haven't even launched the game yet, and 3 people have already moved over and have started to play tabletop war games. Hurrah! Awesome. Well done.
Excellent. Well, you are the new evangelist for the hobby, or so.
We will always try. You know me, I'll always try. I'm very passionate about sustaining our hobby and developing our hobby. That's the main thing. You're not really doing this doing it for the money or anything else. It's about keeping the hobby fresh and allowing it to move forward and bringing new people in it, and making sure that the world of computer games doesn't mean it disappears. It actually means it flourishes.
Yeah. Well, it's a great idea having that crossover. It's a really great idea. Well, it's been lovely talking with you again, Simon, and hopefully we'll get to have another chat in the future, either on the show or hopefully meet up in real life at some stage.
I'm sure we will.
I don't think I need to wish you all the best luck with Rome Total War, because I think it's going to be an absolute smash. But just say you heard it here first. That's all I'm going to say. Thanks very much, Simon, and I'll speak to you again soon, mate.
Pleasure as ever. See you again soon. Bye, buddy.
Well, it was lovely to speak to Simon again, and that is fantastic news about the Rome Total War game. I think that is going to be absolutely brilliant. It's something that I spent I'm not big into computer games, and I don't really play them a lot. But Rome Total War really grabbed me, and it was an absolutely fantastic game that I've played to death. And as I said in the interview, it's a generational thing that my son's played, and I know lots and lots of people have played it. And with it being on television, with the Time Commanders series, people are used to it. So it's a great way of getting new people into the hobby. And if people do convert, as Simon was hoping, towards the end of the interview there, then that's going to be great way of recruiting people into historical figure wargaming and big historical wargaming, which is what we like as well. So great to speak to Simon. My next guest is another big friend of the show. That's Mark Freeth, Mark from the War Games Holiday Centre. And when I spoke to him in episode 5 last year, we were in the middle of lockdown. So let's have a chat with Mark and see what's happening down in Basingstoke. Well, welcome back, everyone. And another guest on my catch-up episode is one of the show favourites from episode 5, from one of those original 5
I was
people.
the only one in episode 5.
You were. But the few before you, they've been on. They're coming back as well. But you've come on first this time. Does that because you were complaining last time, weren't you, that you were on fifth?
I was. I barraged you with emails looking for a slot.
Yeah, but we've sorted it out this time. Our agents have met, and it's all above board. And we're doing this over the internet, so you won't be able to run up and slap me in the face if I say something naughty. So we're doing all right. So back in April last year, episode 5, Mark Freeth was on, and Mark is the owner, custodian, and runner of the Wargames Holiday Centre, and we chatted for a couple of hours about. We occasionally mentioned the Wargames Holiday Centre, but we went down a number of rabbit holes. So how are you doing, Mark? It's been a while since I've seen you.
I'm doing very well, thank you, Ken. It's been a crazy year.
Yeah.
I'm full this year. I think that the only slots I've got are Indian Mutiny and Edge Hill, and they're running out fast. I booked up 5 for Indian Mutiny just earlier this week, so it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
That's what we like to hear, because last time we spoke, we were wearing virtual masks and virtual gloves, and we couldn't step outside our houses, and most wargamers anyway, quite insular people, aren't they? So I think quietly most people enjoyed lockdown.
Well, my wife insists I still wear the mask. What's that about?
Oh. So is it a full face covering? So you're walking into walls
like a welder's.
Yeah,
a welder's mask.
Excellent. So how was it opening up, mate? What was that first game like when you got people back into the centre?
Well, the first one we did was Waterloo, and I got a lot of guys that were regulars at the centre, and they came along, and it was a little bit of trepidation because I don't know if you remember, Ken. We've moved into a new premises now, so we're in a conference suite, which honestly is like playing on a football pitch. It's enormous,
Yeah.
I put the table up, and I've extended it to 30 feet now, and it's still 12 feet wide because I still follow the doctrine that all the battle tends to migrate to the middle of a table.
Yeah.
I think I mentioned before the back 6 foot that we used to have at the old unit was people just put their coats on it.
Drinks and old sandwiches and stuff like that.
Yeah, or paperwork. It just looked like a refuse tip toward the end. And I'd lay all the lovely terrain out, put the villages on, and it just wouldn't get used. But so anyway, now we've got 3 foot either side of the 6 foot main, protagonist table. And Waterloo went down an absolute storm because I've been to Waterloo quite a few times, and I think if ever you travel to a battlefield and walk the battlefield, immediately you become, and I've not done it much before, to be honest, but when you walk it, you suddenly realise the lay of the ground and how things aren't visible and where things can spring surprises during the course of a battle. And we walked right round the battlefield at Waterloo, and we went down to Hougoumont, and you can't see La Haye-Sainte from Hougoumont. It's not a great distance, but you can't see it because of the lay of the land. And I guess back then it would be even worse because the ridge had that gradient to it. And when I did the game, I thought, well, I've got to try and replicate some of that. So I reduced the visibility from 54 inches for Grand Manor down to 48 just for that game. So we play with blinds. So you start with blinds, and that's just about ensuring that guys don't say, "Oh, there's a cavalry brigade over there. I'm going to put my cavalry brigade here to see it off." And I decided to put the Battle of Plancenoit on a separate table.
Oh, right, good idea.
Historically, it was always on the backboard, and you'd fight around this 6 feet. So it did have its own space. But when you go to Plancenoit, you can't see anything of the battlefield of Waterloo, really. And it's only if you get up onto a rise where the Prussian monument is now, you can actually see over the fields to where the Prussians were coming in from the east or the northeast.
Yeah.
And it just meant that I thought to myself, right, if I have an exit point on the battlefield for the reinforcement of Plancenoit, the French will become aware when the Prussians are arriving. And the Prussians arrived on this 15-foot table and started making their way down the table before they even populated Plancenoit. So the French then decided to put out the cavalry brigade to try and slow them down. It was all quite a historical feel to it, but I obviously give all the gamers free reign. You know, they can put in what they want. They can ignore it completely and try and smash the British Ridge or the British Allied Ridge, or they can dive in and engage the Prussians. And these lads, they put in one of the divisions from Laval's corps, and then the other division from Laval's corps was supporting the centre, the push with D'Erlon up the slopes. Ray was around Hougoumont, so that was in its own right. That was a battle in itself. But Plancenoit just developed into this thing where the division got down there. There was a light cavalry brigade. There was 2 regiments of light cavalry that rushed out and were trying to delay the Prussians. As the Prussians were coming in, the French then got a bit more nervous about it, and they did put one of the young guard brigades went down there and was helping out. But that meant the French had a lot more in the middle, fighting against the Allies. And to push up the slope, it was working really well for the French. But then the Brits counterattacked with the heavy cavalry brigades, the Union Brigade, and the household, and it just smashed the infantry because it was all getting a bit worn. So it really put it on the back foot. Then the French released the guard down. It was all swings and roundabouts. La Haye Saint fell eventually, so it's all quite a historical feel to it. And then the next games, I did Napoleonic for the next sets, and I had some guys that booked the weekend with a club. But I think I mentioned to you before, Ken, it might not have been on the podcast, but certainly in conversation, it went mad. As soon as I said, we're reopening, it just filled up like that.
Wow.
And now this year, as I said, it's full again. And there's a downside to that because I still want people to be able to experience it. And I never like to say, look, sorry, we're full. You'll have to come back next year.
Is it people returning or is the new people coming along?
No. This is the social media aspect. That's the marketing that I'm doing there is literally just sharing photographs, talking about the games, but also promoting other aspects of the hobby, yours included. A lot of these guys are doing really, really good stuff. David Imrie, I'm a massive fan of the work he's doing.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I put all that stuff. Chris Cornwall's done some fantastic work with the Renaissance stuff. You'll have seen that.
Yeah.
So all that just lends to the marketing exercise where the guys they're quite keen to come for their first experience. I've had to turn away 2 clubs, which is not where I want to be.
Yeah.
But I've got one already booked in for January, the end of January next year.
Superb.
Yeah, it's bonkers, absolutely bonkers.
And people said that the big game was dead, mate, and we're proving them wrong, aren't we? We're proving them wrong. Have you got any skirmish weekends going? No, you haven't, have you?
I mean, I do chain of command weekends. So technically, in isolation, each player has his own skirmish because they're only, they're at a platoon level, squad level, whatever it might be. But the table is still 30 feet by 12 feet, and it's got so much terrain on it. Yeah, they just look fantastic. Model railway enthusiasts, eat your heart out. This is really looking great when they do that.
We're fighting back against the model railway guys. That's what I like to see.
Yeah.
So you've got some new stuff coming up this year. So what's your new periods for the year?
Well, I'm doing a lot more this year. English Civil War, that's a new one for me.
Yeah, I wasn't aware of that.
So Indian Mutiny, we've done that before.
Yeah.
English Civil War, we're using the rules that Steve Thompson's written. Now, these all have a framework to them, much like, you might have Black Powder has a framework and they amend it with their supplements. Well, Steve does that within the rule set. So as long as you understand the basis, we did the Don Featherston last year, we did the Zulu Wars.
Yeah.
And we did the Battle of Ulundi. We did the Battle of sorry, not Ulundi, Isandlwana.
Yeah.
And forgive me, I might get this wrong, but it's Nazim River. I believe that's the pronunciation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, don't worry about pronunciation on this one, mate, because you get, I've tried to do Italian with a Bradford accent, and it's just not worked very well.
Well, it worked for me. So, doing all that stuff with Steve Thompson. He's written some great rules, and he's doing it for a charitable cause. So you can get the rules for free from his site, or you can donate. So for me, that's
wonderful.
Yeah, and it's all going to a good cause for combat stress. So next year, I've got more of that going on. I'm looking to do more Renaissance work but this time I'll be using Steve's rules. He's got an excellent set of rules, Landsknecht, that work really well. The thing with the rules is that it's not card, but he uses dice instead of cards. It's fast.
Yeah.
And it's bloody good fun. I mean, you've got the gentleman in there, the hero that might do something special on the day. The doppel soldier who actually manages to knock the commander over. So the whole thing feels like you're having a good time. So I've got all those going on. I'm actually bringing back my ACW game. So next year.
Yeah.
So this year we're doing Shiloh. That's going to be with Pickett's Charge, which is Dave Brown's rules. And I've done Guns of Gettysburg before. Pickett's Charge is, in my opinion, it's an improvement on Gettysburg, Guns of Gettysburg, but it's slightly different. It's a different style.
Yeah. I've been looking into those myself recently, actually, in the Pickett's Charge, and they look like a decent set of rules. They're not too modern to put me off completely, but there's enough in there to kind of get your teeth into. I think they look quite good. Yeah,
I mean, would they suit your Italian unification?
Yeah, strangely, I was thinking about that because I've been struggling to find a set of rules for the Italian Wars of Independence and Garibaldi. So I might put a check in the post and get a copy of Pickett's Charge and see what we can do. Maybe Italianize them a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, that's the great side of it. You can tweak all this stuff, can't you?
Yeah.
Get it to work for you. So, again, your fault. We were talking about this before we came on the podcast. I'm now thinking of doing the Crusades. Third Crusade, probably the speciality. I want to move on to do something like Hattin as a game. I've already bought 15 boxes of Crusade.
Wow.
Well, I've obviously got to have a lot more of the Arab cavalry, Saladin's troops.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems that we found is that we've to keep on top of getting Saladin's troops up and have the right numbers of those, because it's great. You come out and you paint this lovely shining Knights of Saint Lazarus, and you think, that's fantastic, that, and you think, I probably need 3 or 4 Arab cavalry of the same size to get a reasonable game from this. And that, when I started, I was I've always wanted one of those armies with fully armored knights, caparisons flowing in the wind. It all looks fantastic. And then I've painted an absolute shed load of them, and I thought, oh bloody hell, I need some Arabs now.
Yeah. Well, I followed your lead. I've got shed loads of them from Gripping Beast.
Yeah.
And I've taken some of the Perry stuff to mix in with that for, just doing command stands and whatnot.
Yeah.
Little Big Man Studios for the shield.
Superb, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm getting a lot of the banners as well. All that's being sorted out with that. So that's all good. We're doing a chain of command next year. I'm committing to it here, Ken. So it's there.
It's here and now, exclusive.
It's an exclusive. You've got it. We've always talked about doing Carentan, and Chris and I and a friend of mine, Mark Waple, had put our heads together. Mark did a hell of a lot of research. Chris is quite knowledgeable about the whole period anyway. And Mark went out and got the entire US Airborne as well as 6th Filcham to present that and do that. And that was pre-lockdown.
Yeah.
And then the lockdown kind of put the kibosh on it. So what the intent will be is that we'll do the chain of command in a linked campaign over the 30 feet. So you'll have the one big table that looks like Carantan, but they'll fight over the chicken coop at the beginning. Or in the town itself, you know, and then there'll be the fighting around the train station, Carantan train station, and then we'll have Bloody Gulch, and it will culminate in a fourth scenario when we get there. So that's going to be on the books. I want to get the buildings right, so there's a number of sources we can go down there. Yeah. Charlie Foxtrot, I was talking to him at the beginning, and he was talking about doing Carantan Station and all that good stuff. So I need to reach out to that fella and see if it's still on the cards.
Absolutely fantastic. Sounds like a great catalogue of stuff coming up. And you're going to get a visit from the Yorkshire Gamer themselves in a few weeks' time. And that's for the Donald Featherstone weekend. So just tell us a little bit just about the history of that weekend, not particularly this weekend coming up, but, you know, where it's come from and what it's for in the past.
Well, this is going back probably the same weekend that I met Simon Miller, oddly enough. But I used to do a presentation type booth, if you like, at some of the shows. Yeah. And I was at Colours, and this is like, I think this is going back to 2012. Yeah, it must have been 2012. And I'm Henry Hyde, who I'd been engaged with when he was editor of Miniature Wargames. He came running up to me and he said, I need you to come and meet somebody. And I said, Ron Miles was the fellow's name. Yeah. And he said, okay, give us a sec. You know, I'm just doing this. And my videos were running in the background. Yeah. So I said, let me get somebody to mind this, because I had all the figures on the front, you know, and there were no sale prices. So I didn't want to come back and find the standard cavalry had been bought by somebody. So we went off, and I kid you not, we went into the broom cupboard at the Newbury Racecourse.
Nice. Salubrious.
But I was, you know how it is. To stop at the door, and he said, where are you taking me, Henry? So we went in. I met this guy, Ron. We met some of the guys who were running the the Salute show as well. Beg your pardon, not Salute, Colours, my apologies. Yeah. And they talked about Ron's dream. Don had died not long before that. Yeah. And Ron wanted to award this tureen that he'd had engraved. So it's a crystal tureen. It had been engraved. You've got a British Zulu infantryman, Zulu Wars infantryman, and a Zulu warrior on one side. So they're both either side of a badge, and then underneath they just list all the guys that are listed as the most gentlemanly player. Yeah, for that time, you know. Yeah. And in talking to these guys, Ron wanted to award it as a tournament thing, you know. Yeah. So winning the X tournament would get it on there. Yeah. And I said to him, well, look, I'm running the Wargames Centre. I can guarantee I'll do it every year. And I think the first year we had it, there were 18 people. Yeah. You know, turned up to play it. And I've got that this year, Ken. Yeah. And it fluctuated between, you know, over the years it's fluctuated a bit. But it started in that broom cupboard. And on the first one, we actually got Don Featherstone's daughter came along and she awarded the prizes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
It was great to meet Jane. She was a lovely woman. She brought her husband along. They're really good people. And since then, you know, we've been running. Is that your end or my end?
I think you're dipping off a little bit.
Oh, okay. Apologies. I'll talk louder.
Louder. Shout.
So in running it, we have an evening meal on the Saturday. That's a 3-course silver service. We dress up a little bit, so we'll put a suit on, it's not compulsory. And some of the lads turn up, and some of them look like they've come straight out of the Victorian period, you know, with the waistcoats and top hats and all sorts of stuff. And we award the most best dressed gentleman of the evening gets an award, and it's a dolly that's probably about yay big. Yeah. And typical Wargamer fashion, or, you know, lads fashion, it got returned to me after the second year, and someone had drawn a moustache on it, you know. So we do the award. Once we've done the award for that, we then do an auction in the evening. we have after dinner speakers. This year, Robbie Roddis is going to talk about his engagement with Peter Gilder and what he's brought forward to Peter Gilder.
Yeah, good old Robbie.
Over the years, I've had some, salubrious guests that have come along. Dave Brown, Charlie Wesencraft, who is the author of the rule sets. He was another one. And, we've done a lot of those. The guy from Empress Miniatures, he did a spot. It's all about that. We do the auction after the guest does the speaking. And then at the auction, all the proceeds of the auction go to the charity as well. So I do a donation. So whatever the lads pay me, a percentage of that goes to the charity as well. And I think we did £1,300 last year.
Nice.
It's
very nice.
It's not it's not the world, but it's something.
Yeah, no, it's always good. And so, what's planned for this year then, mate? What have we got planned for the weekend this time round?
Well, it's a big old Italian Renaissance, early Italian Renaissance. So we've got something crazy like 20 battaglia laid out. And I think Chris and I were talking about the amount of knights that we've got on this 30-foot table. And we've got in excess of 300 between us,
Yeah.
That's not including any of the normal cavalry or the writers or the Stradio or any of that stuff.
Yeah,
that's we haven't included any of that. This is just the meaty armored stuff and a lot of pike. So what we're doing is a what if. So Swiss coming down through Italy, meeting up with some of the northern Italian states, the French trying to stop them. We've got other Italian states fighting the Spanish.
Oh, nice.
So we've got again, we're going to do something similar to we do with the chain of command. I've done this before. We lay out the whole table, so you'll have the 30 feet of table, and it will be divided by a landscape, a terrain feature. One battle will offer a result and either improvement or detriment to the next battle. So it's a ladder, and then we'll have two battles going on at the same time. And then the next battle, there'll be a mix of the battaglia. So guys can start bidding or, working on whether they've got extra troops they can bring in, or if they bring benefit to the troops have got more elan in the next battle.
Yeah.
They've won. The militia aren't quite the same militia anymore. So that'll be on the Friday through to the Saturday. And then probably lunchtime Saturday after lunch, we'll do another game. And then we'll culminate Sunday morning. It'll be a new battle with all the the benefits that go from the previous battles.
Super. And what rule set are we using?
We're using now. So people are going to come to me now and say, "Can I have a copy of your amendment?" But we're using pike and shot.
Right. So I'm writing it. I'm writing it down because I might have to read it because I've never used them. So.
Oh right. Well, you can get a PDF from it if you've played.
I've got a PDF of it because it was free. I think that's why I've got one.
So you and me both. I have got the hard copy of the book as well, though. To be fair. It'll be pike and shot. We've amended it, not tremendously, I don't think, but we've amended it. We've as a chap called Olicana's got some very sensible ideas, and one of the guys,
James Roach.
You got it.
Yeah, I know James. Yeah, he's a friend of mine.
Yeah, so he's got some cracking ideas, and also a guy called Brian Horrocks who comes along from Blackpool Club. He's done a hell of a lot of study and much like James, and so we're taking a mix of both of those. I've got to make it so that it's fun to play. I need to ensure that it's got some legs to it, that it's not all over by tea time on Friday. But also it's the key, and always the key to this is that people have a good time and they're enjoying what they're doing, and ultimately it's fair. It needs to be fair and reflect the period. That's the key thing.
Yeah, the Donald Featherstone weekend, the games change each year, don't they? It's not the same. So is the Italian Wars going to become one of the regular things outside of the Don Featherstone weekend?
Yeah, that's the plan. So given that we only do, I think we do 12 weekends a year. This year we did 13 because some of the regulars obviously just weren't getting in. So I put another game on for those guys. But the plan is to do 12. And in there, I'm looking to put in the ACW, World War II. So I've got 2 ranges of World War II. I've got 20 mil scale with all those lovely mixed seal buildings. And I've got the 28 mil scale. I've also got the Sudan. I've got the ancient period. I want to bring in something like Hatton. If I can get my act together, that will be late next year, or it might be 2024. Good Lord, 2024. Right, okay.
Crazy, isn't it?
It is crazy. So yeah, there's a hell of a lot going on. My period is Napoleonic. So, and that's our bread and butter. You know, that's where we really have a lot of regulars coming in to do the Napoleonic. But I'm also getting a lot of those guys that do the Napoleonic. They're all looking over the fence saying, "Oh, what are you doing there? You're doing a bit of English Civil War. I fancy that. I've never done it before." You know, and it's that kind of thing to it. So yeah, ECW, Indian Mutiny. I've even got a chance of the Boxer Rebellion. To do that.
Pretty busy. Lots of new stuff coming online. Sounds
definitely.
like it's nearly becoming a full-time job.
I don't think it'll ever become a full-time job, but certainly, you know, the prep. I've done this before in the last podcast. The prep takes time. Now that I take everything to the premises, it's not located there full time. That the prep takes me the best part of half a day in hours. It's probably about 8 hours work. I don't have to do it all in the same day, so I do it gradually. And the transport from the storage down to where I play it, I'm in a position now. It's just a good workout every month, but I can do it within 2 hours. So. You know,
it's like free gym membership.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see, Ken, when you turn up, you'll see the size of the boards, and they're all they've got loads of muck on them. So you know the sand and PVA and all that mix is on the board, so it adds to the weight of the already heavy chipboard.
Do you not try and persuade people to come early and give you a hand?
No. I do get people volunteering to do it, which is very kind of them. But invariably, what happens is they're not, you know, it's just being familiar with it. You know, I've had boards dropped and guys, no one ever does it on purpose, but stuff happens. And because it's a little bit precious to me when I'm setting it all up, I like to get it right. And then I go around and check it all and redo it. And of course, people think, oh, I thought I'd done that right. And I don't want that feeling. You know? So I thank them. I've got a couple of guys. Bob Winch helps me occasionally when he comes down with his group, and Bob has been doing it for the last 11 years. So, you know, he's an old hand. And obviously Chris does a lot. Steve Thompson does all his own stuff. So when he did the Zulu Wars, he turns up with all the kit. I literally just put the tables out.
Nice. You can sit in the corner having a brew and watching somebody else do the hard work.
Oh, no, I ran the Rorke's Drift. I got to tell you, I thought, how on earth are you going to get this to work? There's 124 British infantrymen in a defensive position and 3,000 Zulus. How's that going to work? He got it spot on. It worked.
Oh, brilliant.
So if you're into your skirmish gaming on a big scale, have a look at Steve's site, SKT Wargames on Facebook.
Is that sort of 1-to-1 126 British and 1-to-1 3,000 Zulus?
Well, he broke it down into sections, so you've got 8 figures, but there is 124, and then he's got the guys who play a part, like the commissar and the two lieutenants, or the guys in charge. Forgive me, they are lieutenants. I think they are.
Yeah.
Those guys they're in it, but they're like a hero aspect. So they'll add something to a turn, but they can only do it once. You know, they can get the card to be returned, or you can roll the dice again to affect the outcome. So there's an excitement aspect to it. And Steve had done all the terrain as well. So the whole of Rorke's Drift was laid before them as well.
Superb. Absolutely superb.
It was fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I love all that. Yeah. It's got to look right. I mean, it's great painting all these lovely figures, but it needs to be on a table that reflects and supports what you've done.
Yeah.
You know, But there's also the aspect I'm rubbish at painting, but I love doing a bit of terrain.
Well, we work well together then, Mark, because I love painting and I just can't be bothered with terrain.
I love it.
Have you seen the Sweeney stuff that I do, the 28, the Cops and Robbers stuff? I've found a guy now who makes the buildings for me.
I saw that.
Yeah, and it's like a tenner to put them together, and it takes me like a whole day and 27 cups of tea and 15 biscuits. So I'm saving alone on food and tea purely on that. So in fact, another one arrived yesterday. So I've got quite a little town and city building up now. So
I must admit, I do look forward to your monthly update on your progress. So that I find that as a bit of an inspiration for me, because I'm still working on a number of projects, getting some of the command stands for this coming weekend for the Italian.
Can we bring our own command stand?
Of course you can.
I'll bring me Cesare Borgia stand, and
I'd like to see more than one of your command stands. You can bring as many as you like, Ken. I love it. That's one thing I'm always keen on. I've got a fellow who brings a lot of Austrian to the Napoleonics. He brings his own kit, and he goes into a lot of the little vignette stuff. So he's got the ammunition wagons with guys sat around having a fag, or next to the ammunition wagon and all that sort of stuff. And I love all that. And he brings his own battalions because he wants to get them on a table, and he takes loads of photographs. So it's all that, You just want to.
We need to keep an eye on Robbie if I bring the Borgia one, because he's got his eye on it. That command stand.
He's coveting it. Yeah,
he was doing a lot of oohing and ahhing, and kind of suggested that he might want to buy it off me. So,
well, you can always do another one.
Oh, he's a fantastic guy. He was on this show, episode 14, and it was just I just spent all the 2 hours just laughing my head off, because he's just constantly telling stories. He really is a great guy. Really is a great guy.
What about his ceiling with the table?
Yeah,
he had all the weight.
That's proper big gaming when you're struggling with floor support because of the volume of figures or terrain or whatever you've got. Another guy, Chris Flowers, who's quite big into his Napoleonics, he had a similar thing when he moved into a new house, and it was kind of, how much weight have you got in that room? Because that joists look like they're bending a bit.
Let's go for some reinforced steel.
Yeah, too bloody right. Well, it's been fantastic catching up with you, mate. It's been great fun. Thanks for coming back on the show and updating on us where you are with stuff. If people want to book, where do they go?
They can go to www.wargameshc.com.
Brilliant. And they've got sod all chance to get in this year, unless it's Italian. Indian Mutiny, did you say?
Yeah, Indian Mutiny. I can't remember off the top of my head, because obviously we had an influx at the beginning of the week. But I've still got spaces. And the English Civil War is nearly full. So book early.
Book early. Hey! What are you using rule-wise for English Civil War?
Again, it's going to be Steve
Thompson, is it?
Yeah, because he's done a set called a very uncivil affair.
Ah, excellent.
Now, if the guys are on Facebook, they'll find it on there. SKT Wargames, and you'll find.
That's brilliant. Well, thanks once again, Mark, and I'll see you in a few weeks' time.
Yeah, I look forward to it, Ken. You take care.
Well, it's always lovely to catch up with Mark. He's a lovely guy. And he put his Brentford shirt on during the interview. So I always have my Bradford City shirt on when I'm interviewing. And Mark put the Brentford shirt on, so we had a bit of banter before the start of the interview. And it was lovely to catch up to him. He's always such a happy, friendly guy. And I'm really looking forward to meeting him in person at the Donald Featherstone weekend in a couple of weeks' time. So it's time for our final interview, and we're going to be speaking to our resident Scottish medieval historian with an interest in Arnhem and the battles around there in World War II. Published author with 15 books, I believe, to his name, or maybe more. And we're going to catch up with Chris because he was unable to do his big Wargaming event in Arnhem last year due to COVID. And we'll catch up and see what plans he's got for this year. Hello everyone, and you'll remember back in March last year I spoke to Dr. Chris Brown, and we had a lovely chat about all things wargaming and stupid projects in 28mm and his career in history, etc. And so welcome back to the show, Chris. How are you?
Very well, nice to be here.
Excellent.
A struggle as it was.
Yeah, we had some tech issues before we managed to start recording, but we've both taken to drink, haven't we, Chris, this afternoon? Although it's early, we needed some top-ups to keep us going after that, getting logged on.
We deserve them, even if we didn't need them. We deserve
exactly.
A good dram.
Exactly. Well, I'll just before we start chatting, Chris, I'll just tell a quick story. I was up in Edinburgh last year, and back end of last year, and we went into the castle. I've not been in the castle for 25 years plus, doing the touristy thing, and we're in the shop at the end, and in amongst all the plastic knights and stuff was a copy of King and Outlaw by a certain Chris Brown.
Can't imagine who that would be. Oh, wait a minute, it's me. So it is, yes.
So, did you know you were on sale in the castle?
It's a good bet. For a couple of years, I suppose, I taught a class in there for Edinburgh University, which was marvellous, because you've got a tremendous museum collection on hand. So instead of showing people, oh, here's a picture of a 25-pounder, and we'll discuss field guns, we'll discuss field guns, then we'll go and look at a 25-pounder. There's one just out here. So that was splendid, and obviously applied to just about anything else you like. It was sometimes challenging. I asked the director of the museum one day if I could borrow a Bren gun to show the class.
Yeah,
a number 4 rifle. Now I know they've got lots of these things. They've got boxes full of them. Spare ones that are never on show and easily accessible. And he said, "Oh, there are so many reasons why I couldn't do that. I can't begin to tell you." But which is what people say when there's no good reason at all.
Yeah.
Fortunately, one of the castle staff who are allowed to come in and out of these Edinburgh University lectures asked me about it and said, "Well, I've got a number 4 rifle. I'll just pop down to my flat and get it," which he dutifully did. So that was marvellous. He just walked in with it, and I'm talking to the class, obviously. I started taking it to bits. And once I'd laid it out, it occurred to me that if I hadn't been busy talking to the class, I would probably have struggled with it. Because it's been
muscle memory.
It had been a little while, give or take, 40 years. But because I didn't have to think about it as it was. So bolt action, here we go.
Real bolt action.
Yeah, genuine thing.
So we were just talking a little bit before we started, and you mentioned that you were potentially moving house, and it's fallen through no fault of yours, I might add. And you'd sold some collections on. I'd noticed it as the 54mm World War II stuff. Has that gone?
It did indeed. It went to a happy home where it will be cherished and enjoyed. We had a nightmare trip down to Sheffield to deliver it, but that's like life is like that. But it was never getting used here, and it took up so much space. Not so much the figures, but the vehicles and the buildings. There were a dozen enormous buildings. One of which was more or less a 2-foot cube. So by the time you've got a few of them, it's a lot of space taken up. And we were hardly using it. It was heartbreaking because it's one of our favourite things, but off it went. Lots of your viewers will have seen this collection before. It used to belong to, oh my God, I've forgotten his name.
John Lander?
John Lander, yes, indeed. Yeah. And there's lots of pictures come up from time to time on the Wargame Holiday Centre Facebook page and in their website. So, like I say, it was heartbreaking for them to go, but yeah, they had to go. They really did.
Well, they're in a good home, are they, Chris?
They are indeed. And masses of other stuff went because we both came to the conclusion that we really had just far too much World War II kit, full stop, because we built everything as companies. Yeah. And Pat, at one point, I think, had 7 different World War II German companies. One figure is one man with all the relevant bells and whistles, because we're stupid, really. A pair of medium machine guns, a pair of medium mortars, a pair of anti-tank guns, because that's how things are doled out. The bolt action premise of I've got an army with 5 squads of 5 men plus 1 field gun, 1 machine gun, 1 tank, 1 armored car, 1 carrier, 1 hairdryer. Yeah. I may be exaggerating when it comes to the hairdryer. It's just not how we play the games. So of these 7 companies, several of them went. And I think I sold 3 air landing companies of British Paras alone. So we're trimmed down to a mere 300 or 400 Paras now. I know it's an embarrassment.
We'll just remind the listeners that Pat is your wife, and she's your regular wargaming partner. And what's the current thing that's ongoing in your household, Chris? Well, we've been doing a bit of Malaya, I think. I've seen.
Yes, we've just had 2 Malaya games, one of which went not badly for me, and the other one was just a total disaster. So we can draw a veil over that.
We're not going to talk about that, are we?
In a 2-horse race, I came a very, very poor second.
Oh dear!
This didn't involve a lot of gloating. Oh, wait a minute. Sorry, this did involve a lot of gloating. But this is with our homebrewed rules, which are absolutely built around companies in action. More often than not, company in attack, platoon in defence, because that's what happens in real life. Yeah. And it's just the size of game we like, really. So we have a very fast play set of rules for exactly that sort of thing that really depends on pinning. It kind of grew out of bolt action. For a while we played what Pat liked to call Albliba, which is short for a little bit like bolt action. And we continue to use bolt action for games at events, games at shows. We'll use bolt action when we go to Arnhem in September, and for our other event at Stirling in July, which is a Normandy themed event. Yeah. But for ourselves, and in due course, anybody who's interested, our own set will be a thing. It's D12 based. It really depends on pinning. Its real connection still to bolt action is we use the bag. We don't use the dice, but we use the bag. We have order chits instead, which are much more flexible. It's not a game that many people would really enjoy. It's far too immersed in history, and it's all about outcomes rather than process. So you're not counting up, there's a bloke with an assault rifle, there's 2 chaps with SMGs, there's a bloke with a hairdryer, obviously, and so on and so forth. It's just, this is the section, or this is the squad, this is what it can do as a section, as a squad, and we carry on from there. I think when I've started writing it up now, and I think it's going to run to a full 2 pages of A4.
Oh, well, what can I say? A full 2 pages.
Yeah, it's very much focused on 1944. If 1967 was the summer of love, 1944 is the summer of hate.
Peace, love, and heavy weapons.
Yeah, peace, love, and light automatic fire, from which you must take cover right now. And we've kind of got 2 variants of it, one for Burma and one for essentially Normandy in France, because although the kit's the same entirely for the Allied side, or for the Commonwealth side, really, obviously there is some considerable difference between the Germans and the Japanese, and there's a different ethos, if you like, to the battle. So it's coming along quite nicely, and one day, probably in the not unforeseeable future, I will make it available to anybody who's sad enough to want to give it a shot.
I look forward to that, Chris. I look forward to that.
It's a lot of figures on your table.
That's what we like. That's what we like.
A great deal of pinning and a great deal of running away. Running away is the most commonly and perfectly executed piece of military maneuver. Everybody runs away and everybody gets good at it, including the Japanese, contrary to what people might like to think. So yes, this is a game based very much on, you may well have seen the only worthwhile medieval documentary history movie, which is In Search of the Holy Grail.
I thought you were going to say Braveheart then, Chris.
The best bit in Braveheart is when the little spaceship springs a leak and Tom Hanks thinks they'll run out of oxygen before they get back to Earth. Meanwhile, Wyatt Earp, in his guise as a Knight Templar, is working on Wall Street as a money launderer. That's the important bits of Braveheart.
Well, our viewers our listeners did very much enjoy your previous review of Braveheart.
I'm sorry, I'd forgotten I'd given you one. I do it regularly. I'll shut up now.
It was one of the highlights of our previous chat.
Oh God, it must have been a very dire chat then.
Well, when we talked last time, we were in the middle of COVID, and you were hoping, we all had our fingers crossed, that you'd managed to get a wargaming event done in Arnhem, and I think it was the second or third time you'd done it. But that sadly didn't come off. But fingers crossed. What are we hoping for this year? Looking good.
It's looking good. Yep. We've secured a good rate for hotel rooms, especially if you're sharing a room with a pal. And how often do you get to play your war games in a building that's been fought through?
Exactly.
Not that often. And I'm sure you'll probably all have seen A Bridge Too Far, Oblique, An Hour Too Long, Oblique, A Star Too Many.
An hour too short, surely, Chris.
I'm inclined that way, yes. It's about 100 yards from the Elizabeth Hospital, for you Arnhem geeks out there, of which there must be a few. 100 yards from the Elizabeth Hospital, about 100 yards from where Urquhart hid out overnight, having got lost. And really, it's in my view, it's right on the most crucial axis of the battle. The road, the Riverside Road, heading toward the city centre from the landing fields. It's the road that John Frost's battalion takes, and then afterwards, just about all the other battalions have a shot at getting down the space in order to get to the bridge. And the frontage is tiny. At one point, there are two quite separate battalion actions going on a frontage between them of perhaps 150 yards at most, because you're bounded by the river on one side and the railway cutting on the other. And neither of these actions are really particularly related to each other, except they have the same objective. Oh, for God's sakes, let's get to the bridge. So it's a tight space. You'll have seen there's lots of famous pictures of Arnhem, a whole string of them, with a unit of Stooks travelling down a road.
We showed that picture on the video version of this. So if you haven't seen it, have a quick look at that. And the hotel's behind the Stug, isn't it?
Yeah, it's lurking there, hiding. It's looking good.
The Stug won't be there though, Chris, will it? During this year's release?
Sadly, no. I mean, I would love to clamber over one. I have stood beside one, but I've never clambered into one. There's one at the Bobington Tank Museum, and I remember leaning against it 50 odd years ago now, because it's long since I've been there. Yeah. And they're dear to my heart, Stokes. I've no idea why, but they just kind of are.
Yeah, it's kind of like a utility vehicle, isn't it? They seem to pop up everywhere and be part of so many different divisions that weren't tank divisions. And
they're crucial.
Yeah.
And the British and the Americans never developed such a thing because they never need to. They can manufacture massive quantities of tanks. And of course, the tanks are much more expensive and difficult thing to make because you've got a rotating turret. Whereas the Stug really is an armoured gun on wheels. It's there for infantry support in a close and immediate sort of a way.
Yeah. So it's a box with a gun, really, isn't it? Box with a gun on wheels of the tracks.
Very much. There's really very little changes in them in the space of, in the duration of the war. They get better guns. They start to make them as better metal for the armor, but that's kind of about it, you know. It's, But yes, utility piece, you're quite right. So,
Superb.
So much as I would like the stove to be there, I'm afraid it won't be.
What have you got planned then? Because I think you're going to do a little bit of a walk and talk and a bit of a tour and that sort of thing. Is that still on?
We've done this before, and if there's enough interest, we'll run a bus to the less accessible areas of the battlefield, particularly the drop zones, and to the commemorative para drop that takes place on Ginkle Heath.
Yeah.
So there'll be literally hundreds and hundreds of paratroopers leaping out of aircraft, and if previous experience is anything to go by, maybe 100 plus contemporary military vehicles.
Wow.
And lots of reenactors. So it's well worth a shufty, but it's difficult to get out to Ginkle Heath unless you hire a bus or you've got a car. A bus is actually the best way because you can all get off the bus and tell the driver to come back in an hour and a half and pick us all up. Yeah. And that's worked well. So hopefully we'll do that again. I will do a kind of walk and talk probably on Sunday morning in the immediate vicinity of the hotel, because there's just so much goes on there, and failure to keep that axis of advance open to the bridge guarantees failure of the operation, really.
So when we spoke last time, then I think you were saying that because you've written a few books about Arnhem, haven't you?
I'm afraid so.
I think your publisher was trying to find you, or you were hiding from your publisher. I can't remember which it was.
My publisher has, for a good while now, has been strongly of the opinion that it's high time I write another book, and I've been strongly of the opinion that it's really not. I really don't want to write another book.
So you're still in retirement then, Chris? You've not decided to come out?
Every intention of staying that way. I've written about 15 books, I suppose. 4 or maybe 5 of them are, they're all pretty dull because I wrote them. 4 or 5 of them are seriously gritty academic stuff of no interest to anybody outside the world of medieval history, and of limited interest to most people within the world of medieval history. But I feel I've done my bit for the groves of academe, and I've no desire to do any more of it. It's a hugely taxing process, that sort of thing, and done it, been there, have the t-shirt, have the calluses on my fingertips from too much typing. Fine, I don't need to do it again, you know.
So what's on the schedule for the weekend then? Have you got, because we talked about some of the games that might be coming, and is it a similar fare? I remember there was a huge, was it 6mm game that was hopefully coming that I've seen some pictures of?
Yes, there will be a 6mm game that's focused right on the bridge area, and you can see pictures of the scenery for that on the Spit Wargames Facebook page. Stupid projects in 28mm. It's what we do. But on this occasion, this would be stupid projects in tiny scale, I think.
Yeah.
But it's
keep the acronym the same, but the meaning's the same. Yeah.
And so, all things being equal, our friend Ludwig, who lives in Arnhem, is a Netherlands Army officer. He has a rapid fire set up, which covers everything from the bridge out to the landing zones. He has all the units, literally all the units, and it's a great thing. Unless Ludwig's off actually doing his job as a soldier, he spends more time on exercises than anybody I've ever met or heard of. So I don't really quite know what he does, but I suspect he's an adjudicator. But I don't really know, and he's a little bit hazy about it. So I don't
one of those can't tell kind of occupations.
Can't or won't. But he's a lovely, affable sort of chap, and the layout's stupendous. I guess it's about 15 foot long, maybe, and maybe brilliant. 5 foot wide. But for rapid fire is a big thing. Yeah, and I guess there's probably about 100 specific buildings that he has 3D printed from old photographs and drawings in the city archives and that sort of thing. It's tremendously impressive. And of course, there'll be us doing stupid stuff.
Oh, excellent.
So we'll have some we'll have some big 28mm games. There'll be a fair, which will be essentially bolt action because it's accessible, and there'll be lots of, if you like, standard size bolt action games. I have to say, Warlord Games have been tremendously supportive of us over the years, and tremendously so. They've been absolutely great. You couldn't ask for better. So yeah, there'll be lots of bolt action because there's lots of bolt action players. We'll take some spare bolt action armies suitable to the subject for people to borrow if they don't have anything suitable themselves, or if they're just trying it out. Yeah. But it's looking good. 16th, 17th, 18th of September.
And how do people sort of get in contact with you to get booked?
Is get in touch with me via Facebook, and Spit Wargames Facebook page is the easiest way to go about it. You can message me via that. But yeah, I'm fairly findable on Facebook. There's quite a lot of Chris Browns, but I don't think any of the other Chris Browns have what do they call a logo? The sort of emblem thing that goes beside your comments and such like. Not many of them will have an airborne Jeep as their logo. and any who do, it won't be a model of an airborne Jeep. So I'm fairly findable.
Excellent. Well, I'll definitely put a link in the show notes for this because I know I've had some correspondence with a couple of people who are desperate to come out and go to the Arnhem thing. So,
that's what we like to hear.
We'll look. I'll make sure that they know, and hopefully that'll go great guns, and we'll see plenty of pictures of it on Facebook. So we'll just move on to something else, and you've found a place, Chris, that is close to my heart, and one of my favourite wargaming places in the world, and that is Common Ground Games in Stirling. I wrote a blog piece about it probably 10 years ago. It must be now. It's been there for a while. So how have you come across Common Ground Games, Chris? What's the story?
Well, through the sort of Bolt Action Scotland Facebook group and so on. I was not aware of it, but then until 2 years ago, we'd lived up in Shetland for 8 or 9 years, and we were kind of out of the way of things, other than the stuff we did in Shetland and the occasional jaunt to do things in Arnhem or to go to the Claymore show. So I wasn't really aware of it until really quite recently. And Pat and I went through, a month ago, I suppose, and I'm just so taken with it. It's a brilliant facility.
It is, isn't it? It's amazing.
It is. What more did you want? Big hall, plenty of tables, wargame shop, and cafe, all in the same space. There's nothing else you wanted except possibly a bar. We are there for 9th and 10th of July. We're having a Normandy-themed event. Again, mostly bolt action, but some other things too. Waiting sort of confirmations of the other things, but I'm pretty hopeful about it. But I'd like to see any kind of game going on. Chain of Command, Ain't Been Shot, Rapid Fire, Flames of War, anything, as long as it's Normandy themed, which actually gives you a great deal of latitude because there's all kinds of terrain, open countryside, dense countryside, hills and woodland, towns and cities. It's everything except mountains, basically. And I'm pretty sure there's no mountains to speak of. And I'm happy to see anything of that nature. It's also very cheap. It's 15 quid per day, and that includes what seems to be a pretty decent lunch pack provided by Common Ground, or organised by them anyway. Yeah. So we're looking forward to it.
Brilliant. Because the guy who owns it's a really friendly guy, isn't it? He's a really nice chap.
He is. He's nice as ninepence. You couldn't ask for somebody more helpful. There's loads of tables. He's got masses of scenery. We'll bring more scenery to make some specific things. We will definitely run a big kind of bolt action game, a multiplayer game. We have a system so that you don't end up waiting half an hour for your dice to come out of the bag. The system's very, very complicated. Whoever's running the show has everybody gets 8 dice. It doesn't matter how many units you've got. You get 8 dice. If a unit's destroyed, you don't lose the die, but you're responsible for the dice. So whoever's running the show has a deck of 16 cards, 8 red, 8 black. Turn over a black card. All the Axis players play 1 die, or more than one if they're using the stat to it, follow me kind of stuff. Turn over a red red card. All the allied players play a die. Once the deck has been exhausted, that's the end of the turn. Everybody picks up their dice and you start again. If you neglect to pick up your dice, it's what we call your own fault. We like technical terms. Yeah, we call it your own fault, or if we're being posh, we call it friction. Very close fits. But it's your problem. Naturally, if you've used a platoon order, what have you, then a point will come where a red card or black card is turned over, but you haven't got any dice left because you've already used them. Well, that's life, chaps. It kind of works that way. Yeah. But it works well. It hammers along quickly. It really doesn't have any victory or defeat parameters, no victory conditions. You know if you had a good day on the tabletop or a bad day on the tabletop. But you usually know by the end of turn 3, yes, I've had a bad day.
Yeah, it's gone wrong. It's gone wrong.
Or in a few cases, yes, I'm having a good day. Yes, gone wrong is an important part of this, but Pat's currently painting up some standard US infantry, and then she's about to embark on a company of US airborne, and we bought a church that's very similar to St. Mary Glees. So you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to figure in one of the big games, or one of the small ones.
So all that space you've cleared out is now getting filled up again, is what you're saying?
Oh yeah. It's pretty much totally filled up. And due to COVID, Pat had actually eliminated her lead mountain. Yeah, she was down to a handful of figures. Wow. So obviously we had to cure that, if nothing else. Yeah. And because we'd sold masses of stuff, well, we've got space, Some things have been reduced. For Vietnam, she's down to a mere 11 helicopters, I think it is, or maybe it's 12. Yeah. It did get a little bit out of hand.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
No, we have a Vietnam game just about to start on the table right now. If I don't know if this will work because I'm ignorant about these things, but if I pick up my computer and point it at the table.
No, your video isn't on.
Oh, right. That's a good thing, really. It can ruin your day seeing a face like mine. I've got a good face. I've got a good face for radio.
Perfect for a podcast, Chris. Perfect for a podcast.
I was going to say a good voice for mime, but we are where we are. But there's some pictures of it gone up on Spit's page and on the Bolt Action Vietnam page. Yeah. If you want to see some pics, that's where there'll be, and there'll be lots more in due course. Excellent. And on the Field of Fire forum as well. Yeah. You know about this? It's a Vietnam.
Right. No, I'm not seeing that.
Web. I'm not quite sure what it's called. It's sort of a website, I suppose. Yeah. It's strongly recommended if you have an interest in the Vietnam War, if only to look at the lovely toys that people make and post and the discussions that come up. It's a great place for looking for just about any kind of information.
And that was Fields of Fire, did you say?
Fields of Fire. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I'll have a look at that.
I don't know what else I can say about that.
I believe
they have. I think they must have a Facebook page as well, but I can't remember. But it's a great place to ask questions if you want to know about, how many blue beans make 5 in a ration can in 1967. Somebody will be able to write back to you. Is that a ration can in Da Nang or a ration can in Dak To? They're subtly different, but it's a completely non-condescending place, which in working circles is relatively rare and tremendously helpful, or at least I find it tremendously helpful.
Excellent.
So that's.
Thank you very much, Chris. Well, I'm so glad that you found Common Ground Games in Stirling, because it is a fantastic place, as we've said, and I've been shouting its praises for a long time. And we do spend quite a bit of time in Scotland on holiday, and we'll always make a detour there, even if I just pop in and buy a can of spray paint and some figures or something, just to show support.
I'm not aware of anything else like it in the UK. I think Tin Soldiers in Antwerp is probably the closest thing I've come across, but nothing like it in the UK, as far as I'm aware. And you couldn't hope for better, really. I don't think, and I'm looking forward to it. It should be good fun.
It's definitely the perfect model, I think, for a wargaming place. That huge space they've got for gaming, and then the shop that's well stocked and has got lots of interesting stuff in, and the cafe on top of that. You really couldn't ask for more. So it's called Bocage and Carnage, is that right? The weekend?
Well, it depends how you want to pronounce it. Bocage and Carnage or Bocage and Carnage. I don't really care, but obviously it should be Bocage and Carnage. It was
coming from Yorkshire.
Nobody pays any, isn't it?
And nobody pays any attention to my pronunciation. I've tried Italian, I've tried everything, and it just comes out the same.
Latin. Try Latin, because nobody expects you to actually speak Latin, and that's all to the good. Of course, it's not sure terribly useful.
No, I'm not sure if Latin ever made it to Yorkshire. Probably when York was part of a Roman town, I think it's probably the only time. And then they would have chased it out straight away when the Romans left.
Pretty much. But,
fantastic, Chris. It's been lovely chatting with you again and catching up, which is what all these extra episodes are all about. And hopefully everything will go well with your event at Stirling, and hopefully that'll be a regular thing. And Arnhem as well. Looking forward to seeing how you get on there, mate.
Yeah, it's looking good now, so I'm pleased about that, and hopefully the Stirling thing as well.
Excellent.
What happens thereafter, who knows? I quite fancy the idea of having a Vietnam event at Stirling. I'm not sure there's quite that many people interested in Vietnam games, but I can easily see myself and Pat going along there just to stage a big game ourselves from time to time. Get a couple of people in. I mean, we have a good sized table here. It's 10 foot by 4. But something bigger and something that people can maneuver around, because it's a bit tight in this room. Let's put it that way. And if other people have something called a lounge.
If you organise that when I'm on holiday in Scotland as well, Chris, that would.
I'd actually like to see daft events like ours happening in other places. Delightfully, there is a group in Finland, Spit Wargames Finland, and they do daft things like us. So I can't tell you how pleasing that is.
That is fantastic.
It is. It's very gratifying, and I'd love to see more big daft stuff going on. If anybody knows a venue that would be appropriate, we're happy to go pretty much anywhere. We're retired. We can take time off and do things if we want to. And I'd be happy to assist somebody put something on, or if you've got a space that is suitable, we'll see what we can do. I'm more than happy to do it.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much, Chris. It's been lovely to chat with you again, mate. Thank you very much.
Having me. Anytime at all.
Well, thanks very much to Chris there for an update on his projects. And it's fantastic to hear that the Arnhem event will go ahead this year. And that will be a fantastic opportunity to play some Arnhem wargaming in and around Arnhem itself. And also get a guided tour from Dr. Chris Brown, which will be absolutely fantastic. So I recommend that you get down and have a look at the links in the show notes for that. And if you can, bob along to Arnhem. I'd like to thank Chris and my other two guests, Mark Freeth and Simon Hall, for taking the time to come on this catch-up show. And I hope you found it interesting and informative hearing from the guys who'd been on the show, a year ago in the case of Chris, and a bit fairly similar for Mark and Simon. And I wish them all the best in their future endeavours. At this moment in time, I don't actually have a guest finalised for my next show. I have a guest who is a large company, and I'm still waiting to hear from them. So check your emails. And if not, I've got a reserve. So we will be back on the 5th Friday in this month and with a new episode. So until then, Sithy.